Welcome again. So finally, we're at a stage where we'll get a little technical. So today's session or this module is going to be, or we are going to talk on MDM to the rescue, how MDM would help you to solve customer problem, what is an MDM solution, etc. This happens to be under MDM solution, but then this would shift somewhere here. So you can see that. So let us get started. So MDM, so we all know what is a business problem by this time. If you had seen my previous videos, you would know the problem, what is the bell problem and what we are trying to solve. So the data in a nutshell, the data is segregated, the customer's data is segregated in so many systems. And if we have to get to understand the customer in entirety, the customer data, the customer's product data, services data, all of that, it is not possible because of various reasons. The data is segregated for various reasons because of acquisition, technology advancement, the way the businesses are managed, the way databases are set up, so many factors there. So for us to bring all of that data together, so generally how the way it happens is, these we call these as sources, because we pull the data from many sources. Okay. Since we already spoke on few of the source systems, I will tell you I'll put the names here: EOM, iPad, IDR, Bakeries. There are many more. Okay, so yeah, this is enough, I think. So these are the sources. They are sitting on different systems. EOM is an Oracle, iPact I think is an Oracle, IDR is also an Oracle, Bakeries is on mainframe. They are different sources. And how do you bring this data? The best technology what you have, typically how the data is brought is always via an ETL tool. ETL is you extract, transform that, and then you load it. So we have a module called CPM ETL. Yeah. So inside the CPM ETL, we do few things. So we shall see that CPM ETL, and then from CPM ETL, this data is then sent to something called MDM batch processor, also batch utility, batch processor, and from there it is sent to MDM server. We'll talk about what is an MDM server, and from there it is sent to an MDM database. Which is an Oracle database. So here in here, what you see is, our CPM ETL is actually extracting the data from different sources. It extracts at end of the day, and then what they do is they maintain. We call this as CPM ETL, or we call it as ETL staging. Yeah, call it. We are staging the data, something like staging. You have to perform something right on the stage. So it's like the data is brought in here. We maintain the yesterday's copy of all this data. We unload the data, we maintain and extend yesterday's copy, and then let us assume this is today's copy, latest copy. Yeah, and this is yesterday's copy, 1 day old, right? I will say old. This is latest, and then we compare this data with the hash key comparison. We compare the content, and then we compute the changes. What changed, what changed at their end. There were thousand absurds, thousand some 500 inserts, yeah, 200 deletes, yeah, and 300 updates happened in this system. So this is all computed here. We compare its old days, 1 day old data with the latest day data, and we compute the changes, or we call it as a delta. Okay, this feature is called a CDC feature, change data capture. the, there are changes, at this system, and we are capturing those changes because we want that data to be sent to our system. So we call it as a change data capture. And how do we do the change data capture? We compare their yesterday's data with today's data, and we compute that. I mean, you may ask a question, why doesn't these systems have that capability? I mean, here we have implemented this way, but there are scenarios where if EOM had a capability to say that, oh, I can publish the changes, I can notify you, I can easily tell you what changed into my system, right? So in such cases, ETL has all the capability to tap into this system. They would have, this system would have put the data somewhere in a queue or so, like the messages you get on your WhatsApp, right? This UM will push the messages in some format in a messaging queue, and ETL will read and push it. So there are so many ways. One of the way we are using here is using it by a file extract. We are querying their database and getting it, or they could send a file and we compare it, or they could send us with queue and we can do it, or we could call their services if they have a services, right? And then they will give the changes. There's so many patterns, but this is the pattern we have. This is the way we are pulling the data from there. So it is not a push from them, rather it is a pull from us. So I mentioned that point. It's a pull from us. Pulling the data from them. Okay. And then these changes, as the ETL component, we have extracted. We finished the extract part now. So now we need to transform. So what CPM ETL staging does, once they compute the delta, they'll transform that data. They use the SQL code to change this data, and they make an XML. What do they transform it? Because MDM understands XMLs. Okay. So there is a schema. We'll be talking about on that schema when we talk about uh, data model and schemas. So this converts that. If there is a customer account, if CPM has to send a customer account, all of this will be converted into that particular file will be converted into an XML, and then that XML file would be made with many XMLs, all the customer create, and it will be put onto your MDM batch processor location. And from here, a script runs, and that file is then sent to MDM server. So what is an MDM server? This is an IBM MDM product. Okay, so this is built on Java and J2EE. So there is a lot of Java coding. All of that is deployed. So all this XML, what you send, goes through this framework, this Java code. A lot of data is validated, whether the customer already exists, whether it is the latest data, etc. And then they connect with the database. The IBM, this is a product. They connect with the database, and then they push this data. So this is how at a very high level, this we call it as this process. What you just saw is called as first process. We call it as data acquisition. You acquired the data acquisition. Okay. Yeah, this is data acquisition. So it's just not this pattern, right? As I said, there could be many patterns, but this is the first part, the data acquisition. So while we are doing the data acquisition, we just don't want to accept the data uh, in a vanilla state, right? Or in its pure state or in its raw state. We would want to standardize the data. So what do we mean by standardization? So let us assume you had your name had something like Ramesh. Okay, so this such things, these marks, exclamatory marks or anything, these we would not want. We would want a number, or I had this name as Ramesh 123. So we don't want this. Okay, we don't want this. So this, and the addresses are also standardized, right? If you have a telephone number like 12398123455, but then you have XXX. So this doesn't really make sense for us to match, right? So we standardize this data. For address also we standardize. If you have numbers in it and so many things. So this we call it as a data standardization. So there are so many rules. We know or how the bad the data will be, right? We call it as a data quality. So this all what you see says, your data quality is really bad. The data was not captured properly when somebody was filling the form. So when somebody was taking the data through online, or somebody was giving the data through online, mostly the data will be standardized because you would have put the necessary checks, validations, But then people, when they fill it 30 years, 40 years back, when they would have filled it on the forms, they may not be educated, or they may not have they would have given it in a certain way. And people who are feeders, data feeders, right, they would have misspelled it, or they would have taken it wrong. So all of these things. So what the reason why we do data standardization is because this all is going to come into effect when you're matching it. If you have a bad data, the quality of the data is bad, then you're not going to get the right accuracy on the matching. And then what it impacts is you will not be able to make an 100% MDM golden record. This may slip out. Yeah. Or this has to be set to a manual intervention, manual validation. You'll all see that, okay. So what is the data governance? So what we are trying to say is, what is important is data standardization. You do it here. So that is what is important. So there are ways. So we did the data acquisition, data standardization. So and then once you have standardized this data, yeah, so it reaches here. And then what is important for us is uh, in typically in any MDM solution. So let us say, what is the third step we have listed? Data acquisition, CDC is done, batch processor is done, data standardization. We stored the data, then expose, governance. Okay, fine. So you store the data. So now, I mean, we generally have to, what is an MDM? MDM is all about matching, right? So the next thing what we would want to do is we would want to do the data matching, you know. So how do we do the data matching? There's so many ways. But then what IBM MDM does is generally it says it has something called an IBM PME tool, probabilistic matching engine. So it takes this data, okay, it takes this data, and it does a lot and lot of matching. It feeds it back, and it then sends it to MDM DB. So where you'll have some tables where they will publish the matching results, saying, okay, this customer one um, is associated with customer two. We call them as suspects. We'll see those examples when we do a separate session on data matching. Yeah, but then IBM PME tool is very heavy. This IBM MDM is very heavy. You'll have to have a huge infrastructure, both for production as well as while you are building it right on your local environment. These are all very heavy softwares. Yeah, and then this is how it is done. Yeah, and then this MDM server, it is then have to be uh, it generally have to be given to, so once you have the matching results, you have made some sort of matching data, this need to be given outside, right? So people will have to use it either to a UI or whoever wants to consume this. We call it as data exposure. You're going to send it to data exposure. Okay, so data exposure means, somebody wants to search your data, search golden records or search your data. Somebody wants to retrieve. So what's the difference between search? Search is something where they do not know the record, right? They will search and you will get many. So they search for Ramesh and you get records to matching with Ramesh in your system, right? And then out of that you pick one of them. That becomes a retrieve record, because now that record is going to bring uh, all the details of Ramesh when you choose a particular one. So this we call it as a data exposure. So this is a typical MDM solution. If you see the data as the business problem we had seen, right? The data is segregated in all the silo databases. We brought in that database to a central database, and this data, if from this database the data was matched, and this matched data was uh, was sent to your MDM server, and then it was maintained in a table, right? Those match results are maintained, and then subsequently those match results, if whomsoever wants it, are given to the outside world, whomsoever are interested. So this is towards your business problem, okay, how it is done. But then this is not it. We do a lot of things. So this is at a very high level. So I will do it in series, because I think you need 2 to 3 sessions, different sessions, to cover all of this. We'll talk more on it. So uh, thanks for watching, and please do watch the next video, which is more relevant in terms of our customization, what we have done for Bell. Thanks for watching. Let's meet in next meet. Thanks.